The dust settled on the rocky wasteland. Nappa lay broken, his body was a wreck. Goku's Kaioken attack had shattered his spine and his pride. He was a mighty Saiyan warrior, reduced to a helpless state on this strange backwater planet. He had failed. He had failed his prince, Vegeta. He looked up, his vision blurry, and saw Vegeta standing over him. The prince's face was a mask of cold fury. Nappa expected disappointment. He expected anger. He did not expect what came next. Vegeta grabbed him, ready to end his life. A useless tool was meant to be discarded. Vegeta's words cut deeper than any physical blow. "You're a disgrace," he sneered, his hand crackling with energy. "You can't even move. I have no use for a broken toy." In that moment, Nappa's world crumbled. His entire existence had been defined by loyalty to Vegeta, by the Saiyan code of power. To be cast aside like this, by the very person he had served without question, was a betrayal he could not comprehend. Fear mixed with a profound sense of loss. He was about to die, not in glorious battle, but at the hands of his own prince. It was the ultimate dishonor. Suddenly a voice cut through the air. "Stop it, Vegeta!" It was Goku. He stood between the two Saiyans, his body battered but his spirit unbroken. He refused to let another life be taken so needlessly. Goku saw something in Nappa. He saw more than just a destructive monster. He saw a warrior who had been defeated, who was at his mercy. Killing him now would solve nothing. It was not the way of a true martial artist. It was not the way of someone who fights to protect, not just to conquer. "He's beaten," Goku said, his voice firm. "There's no need for this." Vegeta scoffed, unable to understand this strange display of compassion. To him, mercy was weakness. But Goku stood his ground, a shield of compassion against Vegeta's cold-blooded logic. He convinced Krillin to spare Vegeta, to let him go. But he would not let Nappa be executed. With Vegeta gone, soaring into the sky in his damaged pod, Nappa was left behind. He was alive, saved by the very man who had defeated him. He was alone, confused, and a prisoner of his enemies. Nappa's recovery was slow and agonizing. He was taken to Capsule Corp, a place of strange wonders and even stranger people. Bulma, a woman with bright blue hair and a fiery spirit, oversaw his care. He was placed in a high-tech medical chamber. His broken body was mended by machines he couldn't understand, but his spirit remained shattered. He was a prisoner, surrounded by the friends and family of the people he had killed without a second thought. He expected hatred. He expected revenge. He stared at them through the glass, his eyes filled with a mix of defiance and fear. The Z fighters didn't know what to do with him. Piccolo watched him with suspicion, his arms crossed. He saw only a monster, a threat that needed to be eliminated. Krillin couldn't even look at him without seeing the horror of his friends' deaths. Yamcha, Tien, and Chiaotzu were gone because of this brute. Yet Goku's wish to spare him was respected. Gohan, the small boy with immense power, was different. He would sometimes stand outside the medical chamber, looking at Nappa not with hate, but with a child's curiosity. He saw a big, sad man, not a monster. Once healed, Nappa was a giant trapped in a cage of their making. He was strong, but he was alone. Bulma gave him a room, clothes, and food. She treated him like a difficult house guest, not a world-destroying villain. It was confusing. Where was the punishment? Where was the torture? He was a Saiyan warrior. He understood only strength and domination. This kindness, this tolerance, was a language he did not speak. He spent his days in isolation, the silence broken only by the hum of Bulma's strange gadgets and the distant sounds of a world he had tried to destroy. Slowly, very slowly, something began to shift inside him. He watched Goku train, pushing his body to its limits with a smile on his face. He saw the bond between Gohan and Piccolo, a strange friendship forged in hardship. He saw people who fought for each other, who loved each other. It was so different from the Saiyan way, where the weak were culled and only the strong survived. He started to question everything he had ever known. Vegeta had thrown him away. Goku had saved him. What did it mean to be strong? Maybe, just maybe, he had been wrong about everything. The news from space was grim. Their friends were dead. The Dragon Balls on Earth were gone. But there was another set. They were on a planet called Namek, Piccolo's homeworld. A plan was formed. A small group would go to Namek to use its Dragon Balls to wish their fallen friends back to life. Gohan and Krillin were determined to go. Bulma, the brilliant scientist, would pilot the ship. But they were heading into unknown danger. They knew Vegeta was out there. And they knew a much greater threat. The one who sent Vegeta was also there. His name was Frieza. Goku was still recovering. He couldn't go with them, not yet. They needed more power. The idea was unthinkable at first. It was Bulma who suggested it. "What about him?" she asked, pointing towards Nappa. The others were shocked. "Trust him? The man who killed their friends?" Piccolo was completely against it. Krillin was terrified. But Gohan, remembering Goku's mercy, spoke up. "Dad saved him for a reason," the boy said. "Maybe he can help." They were desperate. They needed another fighter, someone who knew the dangers they were about to face. Nappa was brought before them. He stood tall, a giant among them, his arms crossed. He listened to their plan. Go to Namek? The planet Frieza ruled with an iron fist? It was a suicide mission. Why should he help them? They were his enemies. But then he thought of Vegeta's betrayal. He thought of Frieza, the tyrant who destroyed his home planet and used the Saiyans as his pawns. A deep, burning anger began to smolder within him. This was a chance for revenge, a chance for something more. He looked at Gohan, the small boy who showed him no fear. He looked at Krillin, who was trembling but standing his ground. He looked at Bulma, who was offering him a place, a purpose. "Fine," Nappa grunted. "I'll go. But not for you, I'm going for Frieza and for Vegeta." It was not the answer they wanted, but it was the one they got. An uneasy alliance was formed. The monster who had brought them so much pain was now their travel companion, their protector. The journey to Namek would be long, and it would change them all forever. The trip through space was tense. Kami's old ship was small, and the four of them were crammed together. Bulma was busy with the ship's controls, trying her best to navigate the vast emptiness of space. Krillin mostly kept to himself, stealing nervous glances at the hulking Saiyan who sat silently in the corner. Gohan, however, was not afraid. He approached Nappa, offering him some of the food Bulma had packed. Nappa was surprised. He looked at the small offering, then at the boy's innocent face. He had never been offered anything without a catch. Nappa slowly started to talk. At first, it was just grunts and short answers, but Gohan was persistent. He asked Nappa about being a Saiyan. He asked about other planets. Nappa found himself telling stories of battles on distant worlds, of the Saiyan pride in combat. He spoke of his own training, of his loyalty to Vegeta. He didn't talk about the cruelty or the killing. He talked about the warrior's life he knew. Krillin listened from a distance, and for the first time he saw Nappa not just as a monster, but as a soldier from a different, brutal culture. There were moments of humor, too. Nappa was not used to Earth customs. He ate with his hands, loudly and messily. He didn't understand why Bulma got so upset about him tracking dirt on the floor. He tried to train in the small ship, nearly breaking it several times. Bulma would yell at him, and Nappa, a warrior who had faced down armies, would look genuinely confused by her anger. Gohan and Krillin found themselves laughing. The tension began to ease. They were not friends, not yet, but they were becoming a team. As they got closer to Namek, the reality of their mission set in. Nappa explained the kind of power Frieza commanded. He told them about his elite soldiers, like Dodoria and Zarbon. He told them about the Ginyu Force. His stories were terrifying, but they were also a warning. He was preparing them. He was using his knowledge to give them a fighting chance. Krillin realized that Nappa wanted to survive just as much as they did, and he knew that their survival was now linked. The hulking Saiyan was no longer just a weapon, he was becoming an ally. Namek was not the peaceful paradise they had hoped for. Frieza's army was already there, terrorizing the Namekian people and stealing their Dragon Balls. The sky was dark and the air was thick with fear. Soon after they landed, they witnessed the brutality firsthand. Frieza's pink, brutish henchman, Dodoria, was slaughtering Namekian warriors. Gohan, in a fit of rage and courage, rushed in to save a young Namekian child named Denda. Krillin followed, but they were no match for Dodoria's power. They were about to be destroyed. Suddenly, a massive figure blocked Dodoria's path. It was Nappa. He stood between the monster and his new companions. "You!" Dodoria sneered, recognizing him. "I thought Vegeta killed you. You're a traitor working with these worms." Nappa just grinned, a fierce, battle-hungry expression on his face. "Vegeta made a mistake," Nappa roared. "And Frieza is a tyrant who will pay for what he did to our people." He had finally chosen a side. He was not just fighting for revenge. He was fighting to protect Gohan and Krillin. The fight was intense. Dodoria was strong, but Nappa had grown stronger. His near-death experience on Earth had given him a massive power boost, a Zenkai. He fought with a ferocity that surprised even himself. He was not just fighting for conquest. He was fighting for his life and for the lives of the two small warriors behind him. He remembered Gohan's kindness. He remembered Krillin's reluctant trust. He channeled all his rage, all his pain from Vegeta's betrayal, into his fists. He would not let them down. He would not be cast aside again. With a final explosive energy wave, Nappa defeated Dodoria. He stood panting, his body bruised, but his spirit soaring. He had won. He had saved them. Gohan and Krillin looked at him with awe. He had just saved their lives. In that moment, the last walls of fear and hatred between them crumbled. Nappa looked back at them, a silent understanding passing between them. He had proven himself. He was one of them now, a Z warrior. The battle for Namek was far from over, but now they faced it together. Their luck did not last long. Frieza, enraged by the loss of his men and the interference of Vegeta, who was also on Namek hunting for the Dragon Balls, called in his ultimate warriors, the Ginyu Force. They arrived in a flash of smoke and, ridiculous poses. A bizarre and deadly team of mercenaries, Captain Ginyu, Recoome, Berter, Jeice, and Guldo. Their power levels were off the charts. Vegeta, forced into a temporary and fragile alliance with Krillin and Gohan, knew they were in deep trouble. He had fought them before and honestly barely survived. Recoome, a giant brute even bigger than Nappa, stepped forward. He defeated Vegeta with ease, leaving the proud prince broken and humiliated on the ground. He then turned his attention to Gohan and Krillin. He toyed with them, enjoying their terror. Just as he was about to deliver a finishing blow to Gohan, Nappa stepped in. "You want a real fight? Try me." Recoome laughed. "Two big guys, this will be fun." The two giants stared each other down, the ground trembling around them. Nappa knew he was outmatched. Recoome was faster and stronger, but Nappa was smarter. He was a veteran of countless battles. He wasn't just a brute, he was a Saiyan elite. He used tactics, dodging and weaving, letting Recoome waste his energy on flashy, powerful attacks that missed their mark. He took heavy hits, but he kept getting back up. He was fighting for Gohan. He was fighting for Krillin. He was even fighting for the beaten Vegeta, the prince who had thrown him away. He was fighting for the honor of the Saiyan race, a race Frieza had enslaved. Just as Nappa's energy was about to give out, a ship streaked across the Namekian sky. It was Goku. He had arrived. He healed Nappa, Gohan, and Krillin with Senzu beans. With his new incredible power from training in 100 times Earth's gravity, Goku defeated Recoome and the rest of the Ginyu Force with stunning speed. Nappa watched in amazement. This was the man who had defeated him, the man who had saved him. He was on a completely different level. Nappa felt no jealousy, only respect. And he felt pride, knowing he had held the line until the hero arrived. The final battle loomed. With the Ginyu Force gone, only Frieza remained. The tyrant revealed his true power, transforming into monstrous new forms. Each one was more powerful and terrifying than the last. He toyed with them, a cruel cat playing with doomed mice. He mortally wounded Vegeta, who in his final moments tearfully told Goku the truth about their planet's destruction at Frieza's hands. He begged Goku, a fellow Saiyan, to defeat the monster who had ruined their lives. The weight of the entire Saiyan race now rested on Goku's shoulders. Frieza was a nightmare. His speed was unbelievable, his power overwhelming. Piccolo, who had been wished to Namek, joined the fight, but even he was no match. The Z fighters fought bravely, but it was hopeless. Frieza was simply too strong. Nappa threw himself into the fray, fighting alongside his new comrades. He knew he was just an insect to Frieza, but he refused to stand by and do nothing. He fired his volcano explosion attack, a massive wave of energy, but Frieza deflected it with a flick of his finger. Despite the futility, Nappa's courage was infectious. Seeing the former villain fight so desperately for their sake inspired the others. If he could stand up to this monster, so could they. They launched a combined assault, a desperate final stand. Gohan unleashed a Masenko. Krillin threw a Destructo Disc. Nappa gathered all his remaining strength for one last powerful blast. For a moment, it seemed like their combined power might actually do something, but Frieza emerged from the smoke and dust unscathed, laughing at their pathetic efforts. Then, the unthinkable happened. Frieza, tired of the games, lifted Krillin into the air and made him explode. The loss of his best friend pushed Goku over the edge. A primal scream tore from his throat. His hair flashed gold, his eyes turned a piercing green. The legend was true, a Super Saiyan had been born. Nappa stared in utter shock and disbelief. This was the power he had only heard of in myths. A golden warrior born of righteous fury was ready to avenge them all. Hope was not lost. It had just been ignited. The battle between Goku and Frieza was on a scale Nappa could barely comprehend. It was a clash of gods, shaking the very core of the dying planet Namek. Goku ordered Gohan to take Piccolo and Bulma and get off the planet. He would handle Frieza alone. Gohan hesitated, not wanting to leave his father. Nappa put a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. "He's right," Nappa said, his voice filled with a newfound reverence for Goku. "That is a battle of Super Saiyans. We will only get in the way. We must trust him." Nappa helped Gohan carry the injured Piccolo to Goku's ship. He looked back one last time at the Golden Warrior fighting the tyrant. He felt an immense sense of pride. That was a true Saiyan, a warrior fighting not for conquest or for a cruel master, but for his friends, for his honor. Everything Nappa had been taught about Saiyan pride was wrong. It wasn't about serving a prince or destroying planets, it was about breaking your limits to protect what you care about. Goku was the embodiment of that true pride. Using the Namekian Dragon Balls, Denda wished everyone killed by Frieza and his men back to life. Then with a second wish, they transported everyone on Namek to Earth except for Goku and Frieza. Suddenly, Nappa found himself on the green grass of Capsule Corp, surrounded by the very people he had once fought against. Yamcha, Tien, Chiaotzu, they were all there, alive again. They looked at him, confused, but Gohan and Krillin quickly explained what had happened. They told them how Nappa had saved them, how he had fought alongside them. When Vegeta was also wished to Earth, he was furious to see Nappa not only alive but standing with the Z fighters. "Traitor!" Vegeta screamed. But Nappa was no longer afraid of him. He stood his ground. "You betrayed me first, Vegeta," Nappa said calmly. "You betrayed the entire Saiyan race by serving Frieza. Goku, he fights with real honor. He showed me what a true Saiyan warrior is." Vegeta was speechless. Nappa had found a new prince to follow, a new code to live by. His loyalty was no longer to blood, but to heart. In the years that followed, Nappa became a fixture on Earth. He was still loud, gruff, and had a massive appetite, but he was no longer a villain. He was a protector. He trained relentlessly, always pushing to become stronger, inspired by Goku's example. He trained with Piccolo and the other Z fighters, learning their techniques and sharing his own knowledge of Saiyan combat. He never reached the level of a Super Saiyan, but his raw power and battle experience made him a valuable and formidable ally. He was a mountain of strength they could always rely on. He found a surprising role as a mentor to the younger generation. He would often train with Gohan, and later with Trunks and Goten. He was a tough teacher, but a fair one. He taught them the importance of discipline, strength, and a warrior's spirit. He would tell them stories of his battles, both as a villain and a hero, teaching them from his mistakes. The children loved Uncle Nappa. They would climb on his massive shoulders and listen to his booming laughter. He had found a family, something he never knew he was missing. When new threats emerged, like the androids in Cell, Nappa stood on the front lines with his friends. He fought to protect his new home, the planet he had once tried to conquer. He fought for Bulma, who had given him a second chance. He fought for Gohan, who had shown him kindness. He fought in memory of Goku, the man who had shown him the path to redemption. He would often visit the spot where he had first been defeated, a place of shame that was now a symbol of his rebirth. Nappa, the destroyer, had become Nappa, the guardian. He found a greater pride in protecting a single flower in Bulma's garden than he ever had in destroying an entire city. He learned that true strength was not in how many you could defeat, but in how many you could protect. He was a living testament to the power of a second chance, a reminder that even the darkest hearts can find the light. The path had been hard, filled with pain and loss, but in the end the Saiyan brute had found his honor and his home.